Hello, and today we are going to do perspective drawing with a 1-point perspective. We're going to need a ruler, going to need some pencils, and you're going to need an eraser and a pencil sharpener in case your pencil breaks. So, first off, with a perspective drawing, I usually like to use the rule of thirds principle where you either come 1/3 down the page or come 2/3 down the page. But for this example, I'm going to go in the center of the page because it gives me some interesting roadway down here and then some interesting tops of buildings over here. So first off, I want to know what the middle of the page is. So the page is 21.5 centimeters, 21.5 centimeters tall. So I want to go about half that. So about 10.5 would be fine. So I'm going to go 10.5 centimeters on either side and just make a mark. And then line up the ruler to those two marks. And you're going to want this line to be very light. So try and make your lines light because you're going to want to erase these lines later. So I just want to say that now. Make your lines as light as possible where you can actually still see them so that you can erase them later. Now, I want to know what the middle of my page is. So, and I've got tape on here, but I'll measure to the actual, so 28. So 28 divided by 2 is 14, or 14 plus 14 equals 28. So I'm going to make a mark in the center of my page, like so. Now, I want to start by making my roadway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another mark at the top of my page of 14 from the edge, and I'm going to make another mark of 14 from the edge. And the reason I'm doing this is so that I can make a temporary line down the center of my page so that when I am doing my roadway, I can have an equal distance on either side. So now I go down to the bottom of my page and I pick a number. So I'm thinking I want my road to be an interesting distance. So I'm going to go 7 centimeters this side of the line and 7 centimeters that side of the line. So now this point here is going to be your perspective point right in the center, where all your lines will come from for your buildings and your roads and everything. So line up your ruler with this point and that point and make a line. Now go to the other side and do the same thing. Line up your ruler here with both of these points and make another line. Now we have our beginning of our road started. So next thing I want to do is I want to think, okay, where would my buildings be? So I'm going to come over, I'm going to measure actually, I'm thinking I'd like there to be a sidewalk. So I'm going to measure 3 centimeters over this way from this line in this point and 3 centimeters that way. Next, I line it up with these 2 points, draw the line, line it up with these 2 points, the other side the same, and draw your line. Now we've got a roadway and we've got 2 sidewalks. I know it might not look like much now, but it will look like something pretty soon. So we really don't need this center line anymore. So I'm going to get rid of this center line. Just to make it look now like a landscape, like this is your background. Here's grass on both sides. Here's 2 sidewalks going into the distance. And here is your roadway with the line going down the middle. So right now I'm thinking, where do I want the tops of my buildings? Because the edge of my buildings will be on the edge of the sidewalk. So now I go up here and I'm thinking I want my building to go on this side of the street to go like this. So now I bring a line up like that. And then in order to get the edges of the buildings, what you're going to want to do is measure from the edge of your paper over here to wherever it is you want that point to be, and then draw that line through. So I'm going to measure over 7 centimeters this way. And if you measure at the top and the bottom of the page from the edge of the paper, so see from here to here it's 7 centimeters. 7 centimeters, so it doesn't matter where you make those points as long as you can put a ruler to it and draw a line after. So I'm going to start my line here and end it here. And the reason I do that is because this is where my building is going to start. I'm just going to finish up this building because I'm going to have it come off the page. Okay. Now, my next building, I'm going to want there to be a gap from here to my next building, and I'm going to want this one to be a little bit further away. So you can use this line as your reference point now, because you know that it's 7 centimeters, so you don't have to measure from there. So I'm thinking I want maybe let's go 2 centimeters. That sounds good. So now that I measure 2 centimeters, I do the same. And you can pause this video at any point if you want, if you feel like I'm going too fast. So next thing, you draw the line through like this, and now you'll notice that it's interesting because you've got this. So next thing you want to do is you want to erase the lines between those two spots, like so. And because this is making things confusing, I'm going to erase the line on this side as well, so that you can see more what this is starting to look like. So now we've got this and this. So you want to measure down, you want to find out how far this point is down from there. So you come down, and what I like to do sometimes is just make a mark on my ruler so that I know where that is. Right? Or you can just measure down from the top, which is just under 6, and then I draw a line going back. And then I do the same here. Sometimes what I like to do is just line it up with my bottom of my paper, slowly push it up, and that's pretty much straight enough. When we do geometry, you learn about things being parallel. So these lines are parallel to this. So if I put a ruler here and I bring it straight down, it's always going to line up. All these sideways lines are going to line up. So now we can delete this. So this now is a sidewalk that comes down and goes in between these two buildings. So let's continue and let's add a few more buildings going down here. I'm thinking let's make this building about that wide. So let's go, for this building, let's go 2.5 centimeters wide for this one. 2.5, right there. Now, join your lines. And then do the same thing. But this, as you get more this way, you're going to want to make these lines closer together. So this one, I'm only going to go half a centimeter for this one. Then, again, you want to erase in between the two buildings. And you can clean this up more after. Now, I'm going to run a line along here because I know that these parts are going to be my true bottoms of my building. So I'm going to darken those in for you so you can really see them well. now it looks like we have 3 objects here. So what do we have to do next? We are going to come up parallel to this. I like to bring my ruler up like I showed. I'm going to bring a line across. And I'm going to bring another line across here. Now what we have is 3 buildings. 1, 2, 3 buildings. And I think I'm going to have a building here, and then I'm going to do one more after that. So here we're going to want to get a little closer. And if you can do the same thing here, where if you line your ruler up and you move it slowly and you can see that it's straight, that you actually don't have to keep measuring over. But I like to do that here where it's bigger, because it's harder to do a straight line over a longer distance, but when you get close, it's not too difficult. So I'm going to draw another line here, draw another little space, and then draw one more building, and then one more little space, and then just have them get like that, go off another distance. So now I'm going to do a little bit more erasing. This gets a little trickier down here. You might erase more than you want to, but that's okay. You can always fill that in after. Then draw in your other buildings. This is a time when it's nice to have one of those kneadable erasers. The kneadable erasers are quite good, and they can sometimes get into the little nooks and crannies that it's hard to. So here's my buildings going off into the distance now. I know this is going to be the top of my building. So, and you can change the look of these buildings. So now that I've done this, today I think we'll just do one side, and we'll pretend that there's a park across the street here. Well, there is a park, and then I'm just going to darken in my lines here. Let's see how that looks. And so that we know where our defined edges of our buildings are. Now, what's one thing that makes a building look more like a building? That would be windows. So I'm thinking this building would be like a storefront or something. So let's figure out where we want the windows to be. So I'm going to come and draw a line across here. I'm going to draw another line across here. Then I'm going to come below that. And I'm just free forming where these windows are going to be. But again, each time I'm always going from this point. This is your master point that you'll always use to come from when doing perspective. It's very important to come from, and this is called your vanishing point. I forgot to mention that earlier. That is your vanishing point where all your points come from. Okay, so now I'm thinking there's going to be 2 sets of windows like this, and then down below I will do a 3rd set of windows, maybe a bit bigger like that, and then do parallel lines like this, parallel line like that. This line is parallel to that, which means it's the same distance here and there. And so this is pretty much how I want my windows to look. I'm thinking that there's no doors on the front of this building. There's just windows. Now I will darken in my different sections so that you can see what the windows look like. And make sure if you're going to fine line this, make sure to go over with a ruler as well, because it's important that all these lines be straight, because this is a type of technical drawing. So if you're going to do technical drawing, you need to make sure that your lines are straight, because it's very important for the final look, so that you have that nice clean look, because buildings are very square. So there, now we've got some windows, and if you want, you can do some things like this, like some little dashes. because that shows that there's glass. Now, I'm thinking that you could have, this could be an alleyway here. So let's think of this now. Let's look at this. We've got a sidewalk, so I'm going to make a little mark here and a little mark there. And the sidewalk has an edge on it. It's called a curb. So I'm going to draw the sidewalk curb going up. Right? And I'm going to do the same thing. I came the same distance on the other side. I'm going to draw the sidewalk curb. Now, you have a curb on the sidewalk that makes it look a little bit more 3D. And I'm thinking on the next building, let's do a door at the front of the building. So the door I'm going to do about this, let's go about this height with the door. Let's do a double door in front of the building. And then this line should be the same distance over again. This one's a little harder to see, but that's okay. Same distance from over here. And then let's do one in the middle. And then you can do some little handles on the door if you want. And then above, you could do the same distance over. And then maybe this building's a little bit more interesting. And it has, always come from your vanishing point. Maybe this building is a huge window with just one window. But maybe it has an X in the middle, breaking that up like that. I don't know, be creative here. I mean, you can do whatever you like with these windows. You can even put a frame around these windows. Like, let's say you want a frame around these windows, you could do that. You can put an antenna on this roof. But again, you can do so much. You could even do buildings that are different heights. I did all these buildings at different heights. So how about we change this building right here, and we make this one a little shallower. And I'm going to erase this. Now, I'm going to push this across. And now that that's like that, this building would come through because it's not there anymore. So now you can almost see this building coming up a little bit higher than this building, which is kind of cool. So let's see here. What else should we add to make this a little bit more interesting? I'm thinking that if this is a park over here and then this is the buildings, that we should do something a little bit more interesting with this side over here. So I'm thinking, why don't we add in a little bit of scenery here, like a little bit of hills. So that's going to make it look a little bit more interesting than just a straight line. And you can kind of do whatever you want over here with that. You can even bring in, another little set like that. Right, just to make it more interesting on that side and not so plain. You could put some mountains in the background of the sun. You could add in, a few clouds. Right, so now you've got a cityscape with a sidewalk. So it's something I like to do for sidewalks is I like to add lines. So I like to pick a point and start here, and I do the line on both sides. And you can figure these lines out for yourself, how you want them to look or how close you want the sidewalk to look. I like for these to get bigger as they go out, so they get closer together as you go out. So right here, this should be an alleyway. So what I'll do here is I'll delete this like there's no sidewalk and there's just asphalt. Or actually, we could run the sidewalk through like this. That might look better. And then this is just like an alleyway. And you can add details in your alleyway, like if you want there to be like a dumpster or like a little garbage can there. I mean, it's really up to you. You could even do a cityscape on both sides of the street. But for the video today, I don't want to overwhelm anyone, but you can take this as far as you like. You can do as much detail as you like. But when you're doing, you got to remember the rules. Number one, go from the vantage point for all your angles. And when your buildings go this way, always have it parallel to this top. And that makes it look really nice. And I'm just continuing now with drawing my lines, getting farther away. Until they go off into the distance and they get so close that they just become a blur of lines. And if you're not happy with what you do as far as these lines go, you can always erase it and try it again. Or you can just color it gray. There, now that goes off into the distance. Don't those lines add a lot of interest? And maybe the road here actually turns. So I'm going to actually come the same distance up here. I'm going to draw this line going this way. I'm going to delete this sidewalk right at the bottom here. This is just to make the picture a little bit more interesting. Then I'm going to draw another line here for the curb. Curb's a little bit thicker here. A little line straight down like that. And then this sidewalk would just continue like this. But when you do your lines over here, the reason I'm doing this is I want to show you that you use your perspective point again. And that's how you get your sidewalk lines. And you just kind of move your ruler over from that point. Make sure it always touches this point, like the line goes through that point, I should say. Doesn't that add an interesting detail? How this turns the corner there? And so I think lastly, I'm just going to quickly draw some windows in here. And quickly draw them so that this looks like more of a finished piece. And you could even do some windows on the side too. You could come down. So what I would do here, this line has to be through your perspective point. Draw your windows from that perspective point just so it crosses this line right here. And you can pretty much see where those points were. And then take your ruler, come straight down. And where this point meets this line, come straight across. And draw those lines through. And then you can actually have the same windows down the side. Come over a similar distance like this. Draw a line down. Now, erase all these extra lines. Just erase the ones in between. Now, you darken those up. And you know how some cities have graffiti and things like that. So you could do details, you could add some graffiti. So I'm thinking that this building here, it's just a brick building. So there's nothing really on the side of this building. So maybe there's a sign. Maybe there's a sign on the side of this building that says something. So we could do like a little sign here. Like that. And it doesn't matter what it says. And then you could have some graffiti. So like if you want to do something spray painted, it could be like Mr. R or something. I mean, you can do whatever you choose there, but this pretty much gives you the idea of how to do a perspective drawing. And I think the last detail I'm going to add is I'm going to add that center line that goes through the street, and we'll just put here that you're not allowed to pass on the street. So there'll be just like a solid yellow line that goes down the center of the street. And when you're done, you can color this and shade it in. Throw in some big rocks. You can throw in some trees. Like sometimes having a tree in there will add to it. And for your trees, you can also, if you want them a certain way, you can draw your trees similar to your buildings, where this, if you draw a line, this will give you an idea of where your tree would be compared to this one. So that's almost at the top of this tree. So if I wanted a tree about here, I can just draw a thing like this. It would be about there. So maybe have the roots coming down, having that come in like this, having a branch come over, and make that tree look however you like. Right? You obviously want to delete the background from behind it and delete your lines or whatever, but this is pretty much what I would normally do if I was doing a perspective drawing. And that is drawing with Mr. R. I hope you have fun trying this out, and let me know or leave a comment below if you like this drawing tutorial. Have a great day.